Lorcana. Lorcana.
Okay.
That's Disney for card game.
Oh.
I guess. I don't know. Disney makes up a lot of stuff. So
Makes up
like
their own
supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
And backwards.
Can't do it.
Dociasalixpisticfragicalidoripus.
Is that on your resume that you can do that?
Yes, it is.
Are we rolling?
Yeah, we are rolling.
Okay, great.
Okay, good. So
We're here.
the highlight of my resume is out there now.
Hey, it's a good one, though. It could get you in some doors.
Should we do an intro?
Let's do an intro. You want to do it?
You do it.
All right, guys. I don't like saying all right, guys. That sounds stupid.
That is dumb.
It's dumb. We're here.
Let
We're
me-
back. We're at the show. All right. Last week was so much fun on our show that I could not help but bring back Mosh.
What's up, Mosh?
Mosh pit.
Mosh potatoes.
Mosh pit. Is most of you out there, our tens and tens of listeners, know him as Mosh, but I affectionately know him as Salty. All right. So Salty, we were talking how we know each other. Just a minute.
It's amazing.
It's been a while.
We go back 6, 8, 10 years. I don't know what it
It's
is.
probably been 12.
Oh my gosh, it has been, hasn't it?
It's been. I think we took over the show in 2011.
Wow. And
but I think your first year was 2012.
2012,
so
second year.
2024. So do the math.
A dozen years. That's crazy. So
It does seem like 6 though.
Tommy and I actually both have a lot of theatrical experience, and I've got some production experience, and was brought in by a third party to run an event, the theatrical portion of it,
The live production.
the live production of the most famous karate tournament in all the United States. It's called the Battle of Atlanta, and Tommy and I hit it off. Tommy did the video portion of it. It goes out on the YouTubes and it goes out, everywhere else. And I was the director of the live production. So we worked hand in hand and just hit it off. Just have a goof all the time.
This is the nature of our production relationship. For the majority of the time we're there, it's all Mai Tais and laughs.
Yeah.
But during those 2-3 hours when the show's going on, it is fire. And it's like, Tommy, what are you doing? I don't know where we're at. Where's that at? I need my guy.
we have a lot of fun.
But it's fun. And at the end of it, it's like, here's notes.
Yeah, it's a 3-day event. Here's notes, and I'll see you in about 6 months.
And just so y'all know, if those of y'all tens and tens of listeners that are out there, we will be live streaming on YouTube, the Battle of Atlanta World Karate Championship on YouTube. We'll put links somewhere at some point. So you want to check that out. Just know the awesomeness you see on camera is brought to you courtesy of the chaos behind
the scenes. Our chaos is for your enjoyment, which is kind of like fail videos on the YouTube.
Yeah.
I can only watch a certain amount of those. And then
some of them get a little like, when people doing the skateboard stuff and they break an ankle. I can't do it.
I don't like that.
My thing.
I don't like that.
And people are like, watch it. No, I don't want to see it. It's like someone wants to go, hey, want to see a picture of a snake? I'm like, no. I don't.
I used to have Spider Video Fridays in class. And I hate spiders.
You would have like show spider videos?
No, I would. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would. I had a screen, and so I would just for on Fridays just for a joke, and the kids would come in, and I'd put up the spider video. Like the one where the dad is on the ladder and the little girl's filming, and he goes to get the Queenland spider off the ceiling, and he misses, and it jumps on him, and he falls off. It just. And then
you don't do spiders?
No, spiders and cows. Two things I just don't.
You said cow?
Cows. I got chased by a cow when I was young.
Well,
and
I've been chased by a cow.
It was a pet cow. His name was Angus. It was my uncle, the guy I'm named after.
That was creative.
The guy I'm named after, Uncle Edward, had this pet cow, and I was staying with them, and he goes, "Go feed the cow." I go, "What do I do?" "Oh, you get you a bucket and crawl into there and go walk the thing over there and dump it in this thing, and he'll come eat it." And I'm like, okay. So I go walk.
How old were you?
I was about 9.
Okay.
And I go over there.
So old enough to know, but not really know.
I was a short, fat little guy, right? And I had this bucket, and I go walking, and I hear this. Well, Angus was about 14. Angus was old. They didn't have the heart to kill him, so it was a 1,200-pound pet. And I go to dump it, and I look, and Angus is barreling down on me, right? So I take off running. Me and the bucket, man, this short little fat 9-year-old. You know, I was 5'5" by 5'5", about 300 pounds, and this freaking frothing 12-year-old Angus bastard is bearing down on me, and my uncle's standing at the farmhouse watching. He's going, drop the bucket! And I just kept running. And this thing, and I swear Uncle Edward just laughed for about an hour and a half. He just, and I'm running till I'm frothing at the mouth. And finally, I just, out of pure exhaustion, dropped the bucket, and I kept running around the corral, the pen, and I realized, wait a minute, there's no more pa-boom, 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 because Angus was running to the bucket that he's gotten of oats for the last 12 years. And so I'm like, oh.
Hey, you know that meme of that little girl, Matt? See if you can dig that up. That's the image I have. Thank God there were not cell phones back then.
Oh my God! Oh,
camera phones.
He would have been rich, but yeah.
TikTok, you'd have been a TikTok. You'd have been a TikTok star.
I would have been.
Then you would have been a meme.
Oh, I could have been a meme.
Yeah.
So that's my aversion to cows. I probably
you know those people who have these like classic memes. You know, this is like really before.
Oh,
the TikToks and stuff got out there. But like, you should be on the internet was like they would send you the meme through your email or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those early meme people. I mean, they're like doing Comic Cons now. Meet the meme girl, you know.
Like the girl with the curling iron that burned off her hair. That was one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was like the crazy girl, and then there's the little kid that's like, what's she talking about?
Yeah.
You guys got running water, or something like that.
The hide your husbands, hide your wives. He parlayed that into $1 bazillion. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I mean, but whatever, you got to have your fame, and then you kind of got to run with it. So, I mean, I got no hate for him.
No, that guy, they did what they had to do. They got there 15 minutes.
So no cows, no spiders.
So I'd have probably been a vegan if it wasn't for my hatred for cows. So now that large, big, that bovine creature.
So every time you eat a steak,
I just go, Angus.
You're enjoying it.
Yeah.
Music playing.
So, and then spiders, of course, are just because. When we moved to the country, we didn't know. But, I was born and raised a city kid and finally moved out to the country. And I didn't know what a wolf spider was, and I didn't realize that they carry their babies on their back, right? Did you know that? So, because you've been to my home, I'm out in the sticks, and
it's rural.
It's very rural, and so a wolf spider, their bodies they're about this big. They're as big as a platter, I swear. And then when you smash them, then their babies, which they carry on their back, dissipate, and then you're with your shoe going whack 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 whack. So I have my wife do it, and she kills all the spiders, and I film it. And so
because you're waiting for that YouTube moment.
Because I'm waiting for that YouTube moment, and so and usually I'm standing on top of a refrigerator or something, and I'm filming that because she's not scared. She'll just go right up with it and whack, and they're big.
So you got a lot of wolf spiders out there.
Yeah. Well, of course, now we have a guy that comes and sprays once a month, and we have for 20 years. But
you ever been bitten by a spider?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awful.
Absolutely. It's
no
brutal.
Fun.
No. We had a friend at the last place I worked. She had gotten bit by a spider out of a choir robe, and it was a brown recluse, and it just ate away a hunk of her arm. Almost lost her arm.
You got to get to it quick.
Yeah, real fast.
Like antibiotics and stuff.
They get black, like this color black, and it just dies. Yeah.
You're supposed to initially because it looks like a mosquito bite at first,
right?
And
right.
Then, like all of a sudden you get a ring, and you got to measure that ring. If it starts to get much bigger,
right,
like overnight, seek medical treatment.
Sure, if it goes towards your heart or whatever.
Well, you just don't want it. It's flesh eating, so
that's crazy, man.
It's no good.
That's crazy. Yeah, I kill all spiders.
Spiders don't necessarily freak me out. Like I can deal with a spider. Snakes, I'm out. Totally out.
Yeah.
I used to clean pools.
Okay.
And in Georgia, and a lot of pump rooms are, they're outside.
Sure.
Usually in wooded areas sometimes. We would pull them out of skimmer baskets. Like you'd open up, and there's a snake in it. Oh, sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes not. But I'd be like, if I was with the crew, I'd be like, yo, get that
skimmer basket.
Get that skimmer basket. I would know it at first, but clean them skimmers out, because I wouldn't deal with it. But went to one. I was going to a pump room. I was doing a repair, and I had to get this done. And I had a lot on my plate that day. Blah 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 blah. I could turn the corner to go to the door of the pump room, and sitting right in front of the door is a big old copperhead snake. I'm like, oh my gosh. Because that's not how I deal with it. First it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm like this. And then I'm kind of going, shoo. Like, get. And it's just like, curling up on me. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I got to get in this pump room. And I'm not going to kill it. So eventually I just went to the pool and got a bucket of water and just washed it away. It was gone. I was like, I marveled at my ingenuity.
Last one I had to, I've killed a couple of them. Most of the time, I'm okay with snakes. I can pin them down and relocate them. If they're poisonous and they're near the house, I get rid of them. Now, I didn't realize that when I moved out into the country, I'm so far out in the sticks that they have to truck in sunlight. I mean, I'm way out there. And the first one I killed, it was a rattlesnake. First on the property. First one, and I killed a snake, and I'm beyond the statute of limitations, I'm sure. So when this goes out, and I brought the rattles in, and it had about 7 or 8, right? And I brought them, and I showed them to the science teacher. I was teaching at Oakland High School, and this science teacher's name was Chuck Harder, and he was the smartest man I've ever met. And I'm like, look what I got, Chuck. You want these? And he's like, dude, that's against the law to kill a rattlesnake in the state of Tennessee.
It is?
I said, what? And he's like, yeah, you don't want to do that anymore. And he goes, if you are in imminent danger, then you can defend yourself and kill a rattlesnake.
Who decides if you're
exactly? So I have.
If I see a snake, I'm in imminent danger. Imminent danger.
I didn't kill him after that, and I would, I never had much dealings with rattlesnakes. About 6 years ago, I went out. I live in the country, so when you let the dogs out at night, if you got to pee off the porch, you pee off the porch. When you don't have neighbors, you don't have neighbors. That's part of it. So I'm out there, and I'm not thinking much of it. I'm in my underwear, and the dogs are running, doing their thing, and it's getting late, and I'm fixing to go in, and I turn around, and the dogs rush in really fast, and I turn around, and I look, and right there where my front door is, there's a dog bowl, a bucket that has water in it, and curled up behind it is a rattlesnake. And it's between me, it's at the door threshold. And I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do? My wife's already asleep, right? So I'm like superhuman, right? And I got to jump over the threshold, but not hit the top of the door, right? And I'm thinking this stuff, so I jump, and I go and I get my gun, and I get rat shot, right? And you have rat shot I have a little 22, and it's like a shotgun shell, right? And I had to get back out, so I went out the back door, and I came all the way around. By this time, she's awake, and I'm looking, and I shoot it, and I hit the snake with 1 or 2 of the BBs, and then the other ones go in the dog bucket, the plastic dog bucket. So I've now got, and the snake's going. Long story short, about 6 shots later, I killed it, and I said, I believe that I was in imminent danger because it was at the threshold of my door that we go in and out trying to get in and eat me.
That's how you get the reputation for being the crazy old guy up the hill.
Yeah,
naked old man out there with a shotgun shooting at his dogs.
Did I ever tell you about the time my best friend took flying lessons?
Flying?
So my best friend.
You mean like pilot
license?
Okay.
Yeah. So he was a driver's ed geometry and a driver's ed teacher at Oakland, and as teachers we have to do continuing education. Okay.
Yeah.
You can get it now. You can do it through
to get those pay raises.
Just to do it.
You're talking about your in-services.
Every year for your license to be renewed, you have to have had 3 or 6 or 9 hours of continuing education. Now you can fill out forms where you've attended this conference or this conference.
Allegedly.
Anyway, correct. So he's taken flying lessons. He's a driver's ed teacher, right? So MTSU offered these courses, this avionics course, right? And they learned all about it, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay, he goes, I'm going to fly over the farm. And I bought my land from his parents. So he's in a little Cessna, and they're going to fly over the farm, and he's going to take pictures, right? And he's going to take pictures of their farm, which that I bought the little chunk from, and then my area, and then the neighbors' areas. And he goes, "I'll be out there about 1 o'clock." So I'm like, "Okay, no worries." So I'm out in front, right?
Okay. Now I know where this is going.
And I'm mowing the lawn, right? And I'm wearing, and when I mow, okay, I don't wear a lot when it's hot, right? I don't wear a lot anyway, but I'm out there mowing, and I'm in my cowboy boots and my shorts and a holster, and that's it, right? Because if I'm mowing or weeding and I see a snake, I got my boots on, right? And I got my holster just in case, and of course I got my my 9-shot 22 with my rat shot in it, if what be. And all of a sudden I hear the plane, and I'm like, "Oh, nice time to take a break." So I shut the mower off, and I'm sitting there, and I have those. You've been out to my house, and I have these 3 giant rocks about as big as this table.
Yeah.
And they stand about this high, and they're in my front yard, and there's no trees. And I hear it, and I see the plane that's going, and it's circling our farm. It's getting lower and lower and lower. And I'm like, "Oh, this is going to be great." So I take off my holster, and I set the holster down, and I'm waving at it, right? And I'm waving at the plane. And it's low. I mean, I can see there's 2 heads. This is how low it is. I can see there's 2 heads. I jump up on that rock, right? And I drop my drawers, right? And I'm standing there, and I'm pointing at my butt cheeks, and I'm waving, and I'm dancing, and I'm and I'm doing all this stuff, right? And I'm like, and all this stuff, and my wife's on the porch going, "Stop! You're gonna get that reputation as the crazy old guy that lives, at the bottom of the hill." Up the hill, yeah. And I'm like, and I'm laughing, right? And this plane circles about 5 times, right? And then it goes off, and she's like, "Just finish the lawn and get in the house and stop it," right? I did something similar when the Jehovah's Witnesses knocked on my door. Anyway, it's another story. So anyway, they've never been back. So I go in the house, and I'm like, "God, I'm beat." I finished mowing the lawn. I'm like, "God, I'm beat, man." And I'm sitting there, and when we're talking, and she's laughing at me. She's like, "You're an idiot." And the phone rings. It's back when we had real phones, right? And I answer the phone, and it's my buddy. It's Dallas, and he goes, "Hey, Salt." And I go, "Hey, Dallas." I said, "How was it? Ha, ha, ha. What'd your flight instructor think? Ha, ha, ha." And he goes, "Yeah, that's what I called you about. I wasn't able to get flight time today." I'm like, "Don't bullshit me, man." He's like, "No, seriously." He goes, "We'll have to reschedule. I'll come by. If you and Kathy want to wave, I'll come by next weekend." I'm like, "Oh, no."
If you want to come and wave.
Yeah. Like, seriously. So
You're definitely on the internet somewhere.
I have no clue. But yeah.
Oh, this is before camera.
This was, well, I don't know. I don't know what they were doing, but
they could have had something.
They went over about 5 times and
saw
look
at
it
this
all.
Crazy old bastard.
They're like, "What is he doing?" But
this is what happens when you come to rural Tennessee.
Anyway,
it's a documentary.
Yeah, there's probably. You know what? Some people just don't care.
And they're probably like, the commentary is like, "Yeah, he's got a still up in that shed, the meth lab."
Right, exactly. The neighbors to this day, they'll call and they'll go, "Hey, we're bringing." We kind of share and barter and everything up there. Our little community. We call ourselves the Hill People. And the little boy up on the top of the hill raises chickens, and so he brings me farm fresh organic eggs.
Nice.
And all they have on them. They don't even clean them. They're just they're written. It's like 4/22. The day that the lake was laid in pencil. Yeah. And we got to clean the eggs and then give him back the container, and he delivers, and it's $3 a dozen. Can't beat it. Like
twice that at the store.
Organic eggs, and they're some are double yolked, and some are big and some are little. It's just chicken. So
nice yellow.
He always
yolks.
He or his mom, he doesn't, but his parents will always text and go, "Put your pants on. Kids are coming in for delivery," because they know.
Yeah. You have to ask Toby about it. He ran into a guy like that when he had a paper out. The guy was like, "Come on in." You have to ask him that one. I got a question, man. You from California?
Yeah.
Oakland area.
San Jose.
Mm-hmm.
Born and raised.
City guy, kid.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you go to the country? Just got tired of people.
No, man. So,
or did you come to Tennessee? Is that the place you live now where you've always lived in Tennessee?
No, I had a house in L.A. I had a house in Lower Antioch.
I thought you meant real LA. Okay,
No.
Okay, that LA.
That L.A. Now, when I first moved to Tennessee, I lived in Antioch. But prior to that,
In the 80s.
in the 80s, yeah, in 89. And
That was the suburbs back then.
I bought that house for $43,000. I can only imagine what it would sell for.
53,000.
Probably, or less. So
It's called gentrification.
it needs to be. I'd always when I got older and I joined the service and got out, and I ended up in Utah when I was in the service in Utah, and I started hunting and fishing a lot more as a young adult, as in 18, 19, 20, and then I moved to 21, 22, my early 20s. I was in Colorado, and my best buddy at the time was a former Ranger. He lives on an acreage in Arkansas to this day. He just one of those guys, not the smartest man in the world, and he'll tell you, but just has lived it. He's lived it. He went through Ranger school twice to be a Ranger. Was in a helicopter crash where 12 training exercise, 12 people died in this crash. He and two other guys lived. Broke his back and his neck. He was in a full halo cast and everything for whatever. He just had a heck of a story, and he was real instrumental in my at the time in my life when I was becoming a Christian, and he was one of those people that I learned a lot
After
from.
you left the Manson family.
After I left the Manson family.
Okay.
He was one of those people that I realized that, he said, you don't have to change and become this stick-in-the-mud, tie-wearing goof to be a Christian. You can still be a hunter, and you can be a fisherman. But it's what's in your heart, you know. And it was a really I just love this guy, and he hunted and fished, and so he got me in. And I'd done a little bit, and he got me into bow hunting. And he had a burro named Roscoe, and we'd go up in the mountains outside of Meeker, Colorado, up beyond Rifle. It's up in the corner of Colorado near Wyoming, and we'd hunt for 12 or 14 straight days. We'd pack in with his burro, and he taught me how to tie ropes and rappel and shoot a bow and arrow, and we'd hunt deer and elk, and we'd see bears, and he taught me how to, he was one of those guys that would, I'm not going to kill it unless I'm going to eat it. So if we saw a rattlesnake, he'd just go pick it up. He'd, put its head down, and this was a guy who had his neck broke and had an aversion to rain because it was pelting cold rain that whole time, and he had to crawl to a river downhill from the helicopter crash. And like I said, 12 other guys, or 9 other guys total died. But he just had this great story, and he was fun, and he was athletic, and he was just a great guy, and he was a solid Christian guy, man. And it really helped me because I realized you can still be silly and crazy and fun and still have a love for Jesus, and he got me into the whole outdoors thing. And so when it was a perfect match, when I moved from there to Iowa, and I continued my infatuation with hunting, doing a lot of pheasant and deer and stuff out there, and then came here, and I was like, oh man, this is great. And I said, I got to live out in the country. So, I kid about moving out here, but I'd had my spells of being in the country a lot, and then when I had the opportunity to buy the house and move out country life, I said, I'm going to do it.
For me, quality of life is so much better with small rural small towns. I lived in a small town in eastern Kentucky. I grew up in a small town in western Kentucky,
right?
But I lived in a small town in eastern Kentucky. 2 totally different planets, by the way, Mars and Venus. And of course, part of that was college. The other part of it was I worked there and lived there. But I always enjoyed the small towns because it does have its disadvantages with you need to drive to get things sometimes. If you're in the town per se, you're not really in a town. You're very much in the woods. But you everybody knows your business a little bit. But there are just so many things that are just like I value more, traffic being one of them. No traffic, or lack thereof. But I've always, and I've lived in 3 of the biggest cities in this country, at one time or another.
Right.
And I enjoyed those cities for what they were at the time that I was there, and wouldn't trade those experiences for anything. But, you know, I'm very much like, and I've lived on a little farm, you know, I've lived in a trailer, you know, I've lived in all sorts of domiciles. But I don't know much about farming or hunting or anything like that. That's not what I was taught, or nobody ever showed me the ropes on those things. But I do have an appreciation for that small town, rural. And it just seems to me like the stress of just is gone, you know. And I appreciate. I'm saying I've got appreciation for it.
You know, when COVID hit,
and I've always been sort of labeled sometimes as a city kid, but I'm really not. I never felt like that. If anything, I'm more of a outskirts of town kind of guy. Wrong side of the tracks, maybe.
A bourbonite.
Toby's a bourbonite.
Yeah,
I'm not a bourbonite. I don't feel that way.
So we have my area where I live. There's my home, and then there's up just right up my road. You know where my road is.
Yeah.
Just right up on the top of the road.
Yeah.
There's a group of people.
I actually didn't realize there were other people up there, by the way. Just FYI.
Their land all surrounds my land, and there's something to be said for, you know, you talk to people that live in subdivisions, and they'll say, I don't know my neighbors. These are people I share a fence with, and we're on a hi. My neighbors, who are my closest neighbor, is a quarter mile up the road. We have Thanksgiving together. We have, nice. and the kid that I buy the eggs from is across. We share a border, but he's up the hill. He's, you know, his house is, you know, 1,200 feet as the crow flies from mine, you know. And then her daughter, they're building. One of them is going to build a home on a portion. The older daughter that's just got married, she and her husband are going to build a home. So last Sunday, Kathy and I'm in my 60s, and my wife's older. I'm not going to say how old she is. And her parents are in their 50s, and the neighborhood ladies with the kids is in their 40s, and then these kids, you know, one's a teenager, one's 11. But we all got together on their homestead where they've cleared the land and had kickball tournament. You know, Kathy and I, the old people, I was the designated pitcher. She was and then we had dessert, you know, but we do that all the time. We have a little neighborhood paper, you know, it's just
really?
Goof. It comes out, with every equinox. We celebrate
this solstice. We were.
That's exactly. I should have brought it. That's exactly the kind of stuff that's on it. Yeah, and
Kathy was in the woods.
We talk about
hiding the eggs.
We have silly stuff like that, you know. But the point I'm trying to make is we call it our cult, you know. It's the little cult, but it's not. But
ATF should pay no attention.
But it's the point is these kids are really smart. Their parents are very adamant about it. It takes a community, so the two of the best well-behaved kids ever. But we every day it's a share. It's a hey, like yesterday I made this huge wok full of fried rice, you know, because I cook all the time. So I'll bring stuff up, and I know they're going to say, well, you didn't bring it last night, but I have in the past. But you know, if somebody makes something, it's not an uncommon thing to share. So I tell you all that to tell you that when Kathy got the COVID, my wife was probably the last person to get the original strain of COVID. She got it in January of 21, right? And it hit her pretty hard.
Yeah, I remember she was pretty late on.
I remember we talked, and so immediately I called my neighbors and I said, I can't make book club. We have a book club that we meet once a month on Fridays. And I said, Kathy's sick, and I called
Bridge is on Tuesday.
Well, I don't do bridge, but we play rook or pinochle or something. Jackass.
Euchre.
Anyway, euchre. Yeah, anyway. And the next thing I know, one of the neighbors got a hold of the neighbor down at the end of the block whose dad he had a breathing machine. Boom, there's a breathing machine on my porch. Next thing I know, there's go outside.
Yeah.
There's a phone call. Because I told him, I said, we're quarantined, right?
Yeah.
Phone call. Salt. Go outside. There's a basket with food.
Oh, nice.
There was a basket with food every day. And it was, I would get the phone, I'd get the text, I'd get the phone call. You know, at one point, I had a doctor's appointment I had to go to. And the neighbor lady said, I'll come stay with your wife. Now, Kathy was really sick. She was at the point where if she went over 103 on her temperature, I was taking her to the hospital. If her breathing, if her oxygen levels got below 90, I was taking her to the hospital. Well, she hovered at 102.5, and then she hovered at like 90, right? I mean, there was nothing that the hospital really could have done, and I'm a believer in this. There's nothing that the hospital could have done for her what I wasn't doing. I give the hydrochloroquine, the ivermectin, the vitamin D, the zinc.
They wouldn't have given her that.
Like, I did all that stuff, that as opposed to her going into the hospital, being intubated, and me telling her I couldn't be with her. So when it came time to...
Which would have killed her.
Yeah. But I tell you all that to say that, yes, my nephew Josh was pretty good, and my buddy Jeff Wood was pretty good about bringing stuff, one brought me orange juice, one brought me a handle of Fireball. But the point is, and there was chicken soup for Kathy, but... Fireball, man. Yeah. She gets.
You like Fireball?
Yeah.
You get naked and crazy on that.
I'm telling you, she gets sick, and I gain 40 pounds.
Oh man.
But yes,
because you were eating all the goods.
Oh my gosh! I'd like, what do you want, Kathy? I said, we got chicken and dumplings, and we got all and fried okra, and we got mashed potatoes. And she's like, can I just have some macaroni and cheese and orange juice? And I'm like, okay, But anyway, point is, country living, community, people surrounding you. It happens. I think it happens in a more secluded environment when you have your neighbors to rely on. I would do anything. This is funny, but they have a family cemetery, and Kathy and I are going to be buried there. Okay. This is the people that you bought the land from. No, they have theirs, but these are the people that are to the right of me and up on there, and they have a family cemetery, and we said, because we don't know where we would go. We know where her sons are at, and her mom and her dad and all that. But we're like, and they're like, you could be buried here in our family. I mean, you've been here for 25 years. You're part of us. Hopefully it'll be a few more years before you check out. So, we're actually looking at, they have, one of the couples already has their headstone. They're like, we got it on a deal. He did. I got a headstone guy. And surprisingly enough, one of the neighbors used to work for one of the big, he was an undertaker. Oh. He was a big time, and he's like, I got a guy. I know I could, this guy up in, Sparta or Lebanon or wherever. Yeah. So we're going to have so we can see it. Where else do you get to go where you can see your headstone,
Well, good point.
I know it's a little morbid.
No, it's good.
But, everybody's got to check out.
My where my grandmother lived on my mom's side, where my mother grew up, a little town in western Kentucky called Lowe's, like the home improvement store. No relation though. It was like they lived. There was a main road that came out of the little town there. The town had a school, about 3 churches. They were the Baptist church, the Christian church,
and maybe the Methodist, maybe.
No,
God forbid it wasn't the Catholics, was it?
No,
Presbyterian or something. Yeah,
I can't remember something. Yeah, anyway, 3 little churches, and then there's a beauty parlor. Right, the ladies right. And then there was an old gas station. But by the time I was around, that thing had kind of seen it. There was a gigantic funeral home because that was the big biz there, and there was literally an old general store. You'd go in there and could get anything from borax to a bologna sandwich. It was like
nice.
She used to give us quarters and stuff to go up to get ice creams and Cokes and candy or whatever, just to get us out of the house. My grandmother did. But it also one time had the, this is sort of an aside, but the smallest privately owned bank in the country.
Cool.
And it eventually went out of business because a lot of the local farmers who had kept that bank, they'd put their money there and kept that bank going. They got out of the farming business, and eventually there's nothing to keep it stable. So, but that little town, so anyway, there's a main road that would go out into another part of the county, whatever, but they were on a little offshoot, and it literally was the road, the service road that would take you down to the railroad tracks. And on that little road were about 8 houses, and my grandfather had purchased, or his family had purchased a good chunk of that going down that road. And so like where my grandfather had built his house, up the hill he'd put his sister, and then up the hill was his brother. And then his brother had put his son and got a house. So it was like the whole Griggs family was right there. And then, of course, she had like these neighbors that bought these houses. Actually, my grandfather had built sort of a basement house. Like they built a basement in where my uncle and his wife were supposed to live, but they ended up moving to Tennessee. So they sold that property, and then there was like all these little houses, like, and you knew everybody. Like, this is Mr. Tobe, and that's,
right.
And that's Miss Kathy, and and it's like that's the Miss Dorothy up the hill, and when, as kids, like, we could run around that, and we'd run down to the rail. Our kid thing was like our itinerary for every time we'd visit grandma's house. We're going down to the railroad track. We're going to climb the magnolia tree. We're going to go out in the woods and find the creek, and blah, blah, blah. But for us, like, it was like they did check on each other. Like, they would, middle of the day, they would walk over to make sure everything was good. Or, if one of them had like just pulled some corn or beans, they weren't going to eat all that. And they knew they couldn't can it all.
Right.
So they would, you want some beans. And I don't think they were swapping cash for it. They were just handing it out. But interestingly enough, the reason my grandmother's house was sort of the central hub of the little town there was because she was the postmaster.
Oh, cool.
And it was something that my grandfather had taken over from his mother back when they formed the town legally.
Okay. Incorporated
because if the Republicans, whoever there was two families. One of them called it Lowe's and the other one called it Dollar. And I think when the Lowe's family was in office, the census came around and said, if you tell them it's Lowe's, we'll give you this job as a postman.
Oh, nice.
My great-grandmother. So she ran it, and then my grandfather ran it, and then he was working at a factory, and so he sort of pawned it off of my grandmother. But people would come to their house, and it was really interesting because she would get up, and after she'd cook breakfast, she'd go over there and she'd put out the mail. And it was literally like, I don't know, 50 mailboxes, maybe 100. She sorted all the mail, and they had their little box. And if they needed a package, they just go over to the house and could knock on the door and say, hey, you got a package for me? She's like, yeah. She'd just walk up there and get it. And other than that,
that's cool.
It was just like, she did that up to about 1995, and they took it out of the yard and rolled it up the hill and made it the permanent spot where it's at now. And then, interestingly enough, my mother's cousin's wife, still in the Griggs family,
sure,
took it over after my grandmother and ran it until I guess she just retired and somebody else took it over. But it's just like how I think that's what I appreciate most. Back to the whole conversation,
right?
I think I appreciate the simplicity of, like, your neighbors. You're gonna watch out for your neighbors. If a storm comes through, you're gonna go check on everybody. There's something, like when you live in a suburb, like, I lived in apartments. I very rarely even knew who lived next door to me. Didn't want to. I was like, I don't want to know your name.
Yeah. I think that's been my biggest draw about Tennessee, and especially with teaching.
I don't know a person. My mom has lived in her house in Kentucky for 30 years. I couldn't, with the exception of the guy across the street, Fritz. His name was Fritz.
Same as my dog.
Yeah, well, we only know Fritz because when we first moved there, he sort of stole our cat.
Oh.
Like the cat would get out and wander, and he would feed it, and then all of a sudden it was going over to his house more than it was coming home.
Oh, nice.
So we're just like, but it turned out Fritz ended up being a good neighbor because my sister but honestly, I couldn't tell you if it's across the street or there, next door. Don't know. I have no idea.
It's real. When I first started teaching, I taught at Oakland High School, and Oakland.
Oh, but before you get into that, I do have one question. Talking about your commune up there at the top there.
Oh, okay.
How do you think David Koresh would have done if he'd had a podcast?
Oh, I think there's some deep.
I was thinking about that while you were talking.
Yeah. I think there's some deep diving we needed to do.
Interesting.
The difference about
or if he had access to YouTube,
or he had access to me.
Oh no.
The difference with our community of
you're hiding eggs in the woods and doing all this.
It's It's four
solstice stuff.
4 actual households. And it's pretty funny because we're at the base of the hill, and so they call our area Salty Bottoms, and maybe they saw the airplane photos. But we all go to different churches, and have had great.
Because you're all pagans.
And exactly. That cat would. Anyway, we all go to different. We're all in Christ followers, but we all go to, one goes to Church of Christ, we go to World Outreach Church, somebody else goes to New Vision, somebody else goes to Experience. We all have these different places where we go, where we get spiritually fed. But then again, when we come together, we have that common bond, and so it's okay to talk about religion. It's okay to talk about that kind of stuff, and we have, we enjoy it. I was going to say that teaching at Oakland in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Murfreesboro, of course, for those of you that don't know, is a bedroom community to Nashville. Mm-hmm. And, of course, it's exploding. It's in Rutherford County, which is, I think, probably it's in the top 3 growing counties in the United States for the last 4 or 5 years.
It's definitely the 5th biggest city.
It's stupid. It's growing crazy. But when I was at Oakland, we were out. The time I was there was only 2 high schools. There's 6 now, but when I started there in '92, it drew a lot of the kids from Oakland inner city, and we had government housing, and we had all the stuff that goes along with the city issues, and then we also had country kids, and I had kids that would say, Mr. Salt. There's one kid named Blake. He's a captain of the fire department now, I think. Anyway, he took me and my buddy Dallas to go on the plane. He took us frog gigging one night after a show. And he met with a couple of his buddies showed up, and I'm thinking frog gigging, like the last time I did it, you walk on the ditches in Los Banos, California. You know where Los Banos is? Anyway, they had canals, and you'd had one person on each side with a flashlight and one person with a gig, and you shine the lights until you see the reflection in their eyes, and then you tell the other person, and you gig the frog, okay, and then you whack it one time, and then you put it in your basket, and you move on. These guys go, okay, don't forget to bring your, he talked real country. Bring your 22s. Okay, so we go out to these ponds, and he goes, it's right over here. We just got to hop this little fence, and we go over there, and we'd shine the lights on the banks, and there it is, bam. And they were frog gigging with 22s. And I was like,
what's left?
Well, you shoot them in the body, and they go straight up in the air. If you shoot with hollow points, when you shoot a frog,
they getting better and better.
You shoot a frog with a hollow point, it goes straight up in the air, and then they flop down, and you go get them. But we got a mess of frogs. But I was like, and I said, "Are you sure?"
Dynamite.
I said, "You sure this is okay?" And he goes, "Oh, this is how I was raised." And he had his 16-year-old kid, he had his 21-year-old uncle with him, and we rode in the back of the truck, and we'd stop at these ponds, and we'd jump over, and there was something to fish. There was something to the outdoor life. And to this day, one of the girls that commented, one of my favorite babies commented on the last pod that we did, and she was a horse person, and she was raised out in the country on horses. And now I see on Facebook, she's moved off to another state, but she's raising her kids that way. She's posting all these pictures of her kids, her 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids that are out camping, or they're out fishing, or they're on their creek, on their property. That's still there, and that there's just something about that. I don't, there's bad people in the country. Of course, there's bad people everywhere. But I just feel when you need a neighbor, when you need somebody, when you need that, maybe just a pat on the back, maybe just somebody to blow off, steam with. There's just something about a community that it just doesn't get any better than that, and thank God Kathy and I have been, where we're at for 26 years. We just celebrated our anniversary, and we love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And like you, I've lived in Denver. I've lived in San Jose. Yeah. I've lived right outside of Salt Lake City. There's outside of Des Moines. I lived in urban settings, but I don't know. I love the outskirts a little bit better.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, there's something about it, man. That's why I was curious, like, because you got that city shine a little bit sometimes, and then that country comes out, I think there's a lot of us like that.
It's
you'd be surprised how many people that I grew up with from Mayfield live in Williamson County down here. It's like, it's interesting. Like, I actually have, there was a girl in the, I guess the way that you call the roll,
yeah,
or in the yearbook, it was always like her, Toby, me.
Gotcha.
And she lives down here, and her and her husband both from Mayfield, but they're like us. They speak about it very affectionately, but they're not moving back because there's nothing to do. There's no town there anymore because of a tornado.
Yeah.
But Joey and I here in the shop, we're always affectionately talking about the good old days of riding our bikes and living in a small town. And because for me it was interesting because for the most part we lived in the city limits, but grandmother's house was out in the country, so it was got a little bit best of both worlds in that respect. But we moved to Bowling Green. That was like going to the big city. We moved to a whole bigger town, and then it's like then I go to Barberville, which is I'm not kidding. It's the restaurant at the end of the universe, man. It is out there. When I first heard the word yins,
okay, got it.
I was like,
yeah,
what'd you say? I thought I had an accent. And then going to New York changed everything. Perspective was, which I love New York at the time I was there.
I think to be a well-rounded person, I love where I live now. I love where I grew up. I love playing stickball in the street. I love when we wanted to play baseball, we you'd get on the phone or you'd go over somebody's
Sandlot,
and we'd go to school, and it was only a mile from the house. So
back then you could get on your school property without somebody coming after you.
The fence was open. You rode your bike, and
if there was a fence,
and you rode your bike and you went and you played ball and you were out until the street lights came on. This summer you got a reprieve, because you got to play hide and seek.
Yeah.
You could stay out a little bit later, but that was in a neighborhood that
got picked up by the cops playing flashlight tag.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we were in kind of a little bit of a tumultuous time growing up. I was in the 60s in California, right?
Yeah.
So I was
you were over there in the thick of it.
I was delivering papers when the Manson family murder happened. I was the Zodiac. I didn't go to school. My mother let me stay home from school. When the Zodiac killings, when he called and said he was going to take out a school bus, when he called Melvin Belli on the Daily Show, and so there was a lot of that stuff. Riots were happening in up in the city in San Francisco, but it was still the hippie movement was starting to come in, and so there was still a lot of that collective city fun stuff that you could do, but then there was that other stuff that you had to kind of watch out for. But it was I don't think any of us can ever say, my upbringing sucked because there was no kids in my neighborhood. I was in the country. My upbringing sucked because it was so urban. Your upbringing is what your upbringing is, and it's where you take those adventures or you take those things. You and I talked about romance. And I know that sounds weird that, these two goofs talking about
bromance.
But not that we're bro-mantic, but actually some of the things that we've done are romantic. And I don't mean romance like, guy meets girl, they get married, have 6.8 kids, whatever. I'm talking about the
idea of it.
The idea of it.
Something.
Of something. And then that's what makes us eclectic. That's what makes us almost I've had a lot of jobs, some because I was fired, some because I quit, some because I chose to do something. When my son passed, when Jared passed in the early 2000s, he died on the day that Katrina hit. My wife finished the school year, and then she had enough years and she retired. She felt she wasn't effective anymore. I wasn't pleased with where I was working in, and I know a lot of that was because everybody grieves differently, and so I chose to quit. I chose to quit teaching, and I went and sold commercial tires, and and God bless him, a buddy named Steve Klein, he hired me, and I stayed away from teaching for 18 months. I think that was a romantic thing that I did, that I said, I'm not where I need to be in the classroom to impact kids. So I'm gonna go and try something else. I need to make a living still. But I went in, and I knew I would end up back in the classroom. And I stayed away for 18 months and then came back, and I was able to get hired back in and finish my career. And got 30 years of teaching in. But the idea that people said, you're crazy. You're going to give up. You're 15 years and you're just going to walk away and blah, blah. And I'm like, I have to do what I have to do for me. And that, when I was younger, I would have just, and I have done it, just packed my stuff in the car and be gone, but, and I think there's something cool about that. Are we going to get that phone, or are we just going to let it ring?
We're going to let it ring. It only goes 3 times, and it goes to voicemail.
Okay, are we going to be able to hear the voicemail?
Possibly. If Matt's got his mic on, it's in the back.
Don't do it, Matt. Don't do it. But
that happens. I always forget to unplug that thing.
You jerk. But I think that's cool. My nephew came out. My nephew came out, and this is kind of it's kind of that what we were talking about, that the romantic aspect of doing something off the wall. He came to me and Kathy's wedding in 1998, and he hit it off with. So it kind of hits both romances. He hit it off with the girl that was singing at our wedding, right? And I'm like, what are you doing? You're here, And so they hit it off, and kind of he was from living in Florida. He was living in the Keys. Here he was, this
beach bum,
24-year-old bartender, living the dream. Didn't own he had a car that parked most of the time because everywhere they went on jet skis. So he starts dating the singer, long distance dating, who the singer was a former student of ours. She had an amazing voice. They start seeing. Next thing I know, he's like, now mind you, I've been married 3 months. And he's like, hey, Uncle Mark, I'm moving to Tennessee. Can I crash on your couch? Sure, let me ask my newlywed bride. And she's like, Kathy, okay, come on. So, we called him the lump that wouldn't leave, but he ended up, so he sold everything. He sold his jet ski, piled everything into this POS Mustang that he had. No. No. They broke up soon after he got to town.
All right, now you got to go, bud.
Yeah, but but they, I'm sure they're friendly. She was a good kid, blah blah. He was a good kid. So, but the idea that's excitement. That's good. That's kind of how he ended up in Florida. Was just pack it up and move and go. So to pack it up and move to Tennessee, that's just cool. When I joined the Air Force, I had this girlfriend, and I wrecked the company truck. I was delivering for an upholstery company. And I was doing something I shouldn't have been doing, and I crashed the truck. And
don't even want to know.
You don't even want to know. And I got fired. And so for wrecking the company truck, right? And I was like, man, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And this girl I was seeing, I went for a job interview, and I came back. I was 18 years old. I came back out, and there's a flyer for the Air Force on the driver's side. I was in for a job interview, and I looked at her, and she said, well, while you were in the interview, I walked over to the recruiter and got that for you. And I didn't even think about it. I said, done. Went in the next day, and I walked into the recruiter, and I go, can you put me in? And he's like, well, yeah, bro. And and I'm like, no need for a sale. I said, I want to go. How fast can I go? Well, let's get you. I had to take the test, and I had to see what job I qualified for and all. And, that's one of those things. That's a romantic thing.
What was your job?
I was a munitions maintenance specialist.
Were you polishing bullets? What's really?
They called us BB stackers.
Really?
Yeah. We dealt with everything from
Matt's military job was way cooler than yours.
Yeah, igniter switches that would shoot out they were behind what would shoot out the canopy and stuff for an ejection seat, all the way to, at the time, the AGM-65 Maverick missile. And but we did everything in between. We just, we maintenanced and warehoused and inventoried and everything that had to do with munitions. We weren't on the flight line, but we would prepare everything for them. It was late
70s.
Yeah, it was a dumb job.
So it was past Vietnam.
So I didn't qualify for I didn't get any of the Vietnam era stuff. I almost went in early on in the Army in a buddy program with a friend, and I didn't do it. And he got the tail end of the Vietnam era benefits, and because Vietnam officially ended in 75, and so I went in October of 77. It served its purpose. It's just like everything, there's nothing, even the bad things, the worst things in your whole life, there's always going to be a silver lining. I mean, people go, I cut off my leg, blah 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 blah, whatever. There's got to be a silver lining to everything, and that's what people that have that romantic notion can find that silver line. I had a dumb job, but the Air Force provided me with a lot of opportunities. It let me go and see things. It got me hooked up with people that taught me from my love for the outdoors, that taught me a little bit more about geography, my appreciation for history. It inspired a lot of that.
And I guess our conversation with this, and Matt, feel free to chime in this because I know you've got some knowledge. But when I was thinking about these conversations, it's like people get inspired about literature or music, or the Call of the Wild or whatever.
Sure.
They're like, I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna go live out here in the wilderness, or I'm gonna go live in a van. And that's kind of like the thing today is I'm gonna go get an RV and I'm gonna RV it across the continent. I do feel like there's a little bit. It almost seems a little less authentic, that mentality today. Like it almost doesn't seem as romantic to go off and do something like that, to go find yourself. That's the thing people say today, right? I'm gonna go find myself, right?
I think that,
but I don't think you ever had ask the question: did you ever have that thought? I'm gonna go find myself. I'm gonna go join the Air Force to find myself.
No, I never wanted to find myself. I was always very comfortable in my own skin. Always have been. But I wanted, what's the next adventure? I did a lot. I moved out of the house.
That's kind of where I was.
I moved out of the house when I was
what's the next adventure?
Exactly.
I would get restless about every 3 years. The fact that I've been here for 5 is
it's not a 7-year itch. It's a kind of a thing. No, I want to do what's next. When my mom decided to move to Denver in San Jose, I moved out of the house at 16. So I lived on my own. Now,
did you live out of your car?
No, I lived with my older brother who just got a divorce, and we had a duplex and we had a roommate. But and I had to work. I had to go to school.
Are duplex is still a thing?
Do they make them anymore?
I don't know if they make them anymore, but I know they're around. Like if you go in, especially some rural areas. But we lived in a duplex once. We were real little.
My portion of the rent was $40 a month.
Jeez, I bet that was killing you.
And I didn't have to help with water or electric or anything.
I was just definitely no internet.
It was I just got my license, and I remember the Hudson gas station. You could get cigarettes and a gallon of gas each for 45 cents. So you could buy a pack of smokes for 45 cents and a gallon of gas.
You used to smoke, right?
Yeah, I smoked Raleigh's. Raleigh's because I wanted
old lady cigarette.
Oh no, I wanted the coupons.
Coupons.
See, you don't know. You ask your mom and dad about green chip stamp coupons and blue chip stamp coupons.
I know what you're talking about.
There was coupons on the backs of Raleigh's, and if you bought them by the carton, you could get an additional 10-pack, and you could turn those in for, whatever you get.
Oh, like a jacket,
like a coat. But, well, it was more like
or a hat.
I thought they called those stamps. I thought they called those stamps or something.
Trading stamps.
Okay,
that's what.
Yeah.
But there was on Raleigh's there was a coupon. So
Marlboro had them too, right?
Who?
Marlboro.
I don't remember Marlboro. No, because I would have smoked Marlboro. But Marlboro had the.
You would look cooler.
They were the only ones that had the boxes.
Who did?
Marlboros.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could hide stuff in the boxes. But anyway, so I smoked Raleighs, right? And they had Raleigh regulars, which were the short, stubby ones like Lucky Strikes or Camels, and then they had Raleigh filtered. I smoked the filtered ones.
Yeah. Health conscious.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you could go into a gas station for $20 and you could get a carton of smokes.
Yeah.
You could fill up your tank and still get change back from your 20. But it
right
was,
down the street and get a McDonald's.
Right down 15-cent hamburgers, bro.
Mm-hmm.
But it was cool. So I didn't see that as finding myself. I saw that as just my
next
step, man. And then when I left for the service, it was just the next step. Everything seemed to be just the next step. For me anyway. So
Matt's gonna bring up the stamps.
Good. I don't think that whole finding. So I'll give you an example. I got 2 former students who are travel nurses.
You know what I'm talking about? When people are like, there's this like, it's almost like they're bored and like, I'm gonna go. I need to seek. They're adventure seekers. Don't get me wrong, but it almost seems like fake. Do you know what I'm saying?
And if it's, I think
I don't want to misspeak here, and I don't want to be like, oh, Tommy, you sound stupid. But there's this. It's a different concept. It's a different.
How committed are you to it? That's my thing. I
can honestly say, whenever I would go off to a new thing, there was no plan.
There's my Raleighs, yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that's
yeah.
funny, yeah. But that's what we used to collect. So
yeah.
I don't know what ever happened to mine.
So instead of cracking a pack of Pokemon cards or a box of Pokemon cards to get the full art cards, you were cracking
Raleighs.
But at least you got to smoke out of it.
Yeah, I got to smoke. So these 2 kids that I had in class, they both became travel nurses, and one's a guy, one's a girl, and they became friends after school. I think they might have known each other in school. I don't even know. I know they weren't romantically inclined when I was there, and one was an athlete for me, and one was a student for me, and they ended up getting together and because they're travel nurses and they make a lot of money, they get to call their shots. And they've been to Hawaii, they've been to Colorado, they've been out east, they go wherever.
Yeah.
They bought the van, and they redid the van, but they were living the life. You know what I'm saying? Because they were ski bums. Right now, they're in Japan. And I don't know what they're doing, but they ski and they snowboard and they hike and they're all, and for years and years and years, this is a commitment. Now, whether they still have the van or not, I don't know, but they're always going and doing, and they have the means, the job, the paycheck to do what they want to do, and they're living the life, and it's God bless them. I live vicariously through them. I think it's the coolest thing ever, but I don't think either of them ever said, let's go get a gig in Vail, Colorado, so that we're closer to the slopes, so that we can find ourselves.
They're not doing it for Instagram success.
They're doing it because that's what they love, you know. And I think that's cool. So I am with you. That whole finding myself. I think there's some phoniness to that, but then again, people that commit to it, like my nephew, uproot everything, sell everything, and move to Tennessee and crash on his uncle who's a newlywed's couch.
Yeah, I got a friend that she's in financial planning in Canada, and she makes a lot of money, obviously, and she is a real travel hound. Like, she bought a little Mercedes Sprinter RV conversion type thing, and she has literally gone to every province in Canada, even the Yukon or whatever the top one is up there, and just goes and visits. She's been to Antarctica. She just goes wherever she wants to go, but I don't think she does it like to show off or anything. My friend John, John, the actor. He was like me too. We got out of college, and like, man, he majored in, his major in college was, this is awesome, outdoor recreation and creative writing. Yeah. So it was like, where are you going with this, man? Because initially he started working in National
Hemingway.
Right. Well, he was really into poetry, so that's why he went the creative writing route. And he was into the outdoors. He did like camps and summer camps, and then he got jobs he worked at Mammoth Cave National Parks. He worked for the Park Service, and he was a good tour guide. Like he was he's theatrical in his ways, and he did that. Of course, not a lot of money in that, and then of course when he wasn't touring the caves, he was playing guitar and writing poetry and wooing the women, And eventually he just we auditioned for a play, and he got a part. I didn't get a part. I got the assistant director job.
Okay.
It was just a consolation prize for you don't qualify.
Right.
You're too tall. But he got into that, and then so he did one play, and he did 2 plays, maybe 3 plays, and then and those are just local, theater, and but that theater was a rep theater, but it wasn't a very big one. It was some people got that, and some people didn't. Anyway, he went to what's the big auditions that they have in Memphis and
SETC.
SETC, yeah. He went to SETC, and he got picked up to go get a master's degree at the University of Kansas City in Missouri, and that's sort of kind of where his path started. And he was out there for maybe a year, maybe 2, and then he transferred. He just the program wasn't fitting him. I think he wanted something a little more prestigious, and so he ended up. I think he did another one of those things, those cattle call auditions, is what I call, and he got recruited to go to University of San Diego at the old Globe Theater there, and he really got into Shakespeare. And I watched him go from sort of this. When he went to USD, I watched him go from this he's charismatic, so he could carry a local theater stage a long way just on charisma. And but I watched him go from this just sort of atypical actor to his physicality blossomed. So when he would go on stage, I noticed it was a huge noticeable difference between who he was before USD and then afterwards. And then after that, he went to New York. After he graduated, he went to New York. He had an agent. He did some, TV shows like Days of Our Lives and 30 Rock and stuff like that. But where he really wanted to be was in the theater world, and because there's that, it's a different vibe. So eventually he became a touring theater actor. He would go to DC and New York and Sarasota, Florida, and Alaska. I mean, he would just go around. And I remember a lot of my friends, the ones that had real jobs in suburban houses and mortgages and blah, blah, blah. I was like, man, is John ever going to grow up? Is he ever going to do his thing? I was like, hold on a second, guys. This guy is doing what he wants to do.
Right. He's happy.
He don't have any overhead. All right. He works a job he loves. Sure, it's got weird hours. But when he's not working, sleeps as long as he wants to. He goes and works out, and he eats, and he does what he wants to do, and he goes and just does stuff. Every one of y'all are working to do what he's already just doing. Uh-huh. Sure, he doesn't have a lot of money in his pocket, but he's still got a lot of freedom. And so I never questioned his path in life. And I always said, that's cool. And every time I got a chance to see a show, I'd go see a show. And I always enjoyed him. For years, this is where I'm going with this story. For years, John was always like, man, I just want to turn my truck into an RV. Because I could just live in the back of it. I don't have to work. Because some places would give him an apartment. Some places, he would rent an apartment because he would be there for a year, the DC conference. That was more you have to rent a place. He's like, I don't have to worry about rent, especially if it's a big city and it's expensive. I was going to get an RV, or I'm going to pull an RV with my truck. And I remember this was right before COVID, I think. He finally pulled the trigger and bought this 14-foot pull behind camper or RV type thing. I don't know if he was the right terminology here, but that's what it was. But the truck he had was a Toyota Tacoma.
Okay.
All right. So picture this. And he finally got the thing that he wanted. I can go visit people, and I don't have to worry about an apartment or a hotel. I can just live in the back of my truck. And so the first thing he does, the first trip he takes it on, he goes out to his now wife's house in California to visit her folks. And on the way back, He's in Colorado, and the wind got him.
Oh no!
And jackknifed the trailer, twisted it over on its side like this, like a can opener.
Right.
Somebody took
right.
a can and just basically ripped it off the truck. Now, fortunately, they weren't hurt, but the RV was destroyed. It looks like somebody took a can opener and just opened it. And I thought, oh my God, how ironic is that, bro? This is the one thing you wanted to do, and you first trip you take it out. It's like you just try it. I think if he'd had then he bought a bigger truck.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know how much the bigger truck would have helped, but it probably would have helped a lot. But I don't know how big the winds were out there, but it was like February, Colorado, so do the math.
Yeah, you get on the Eastern Plain anywhere east of Denver is, you might as well just pave all that because it's just a big old parking lot. One of the things in teaching and coaching for my entire adult life, I used to tell people, I'd say, I've had a lot of jobs. I was a door-to-door salesman, and I was an upholsterer, and I worked in the sewers, and I did construction.
Yeah.
And, I did it. I've just done it all, and I think that a lot of that helps made me more of an eclectic, more of an appreciation for working with your hands and working with your brain at the same time. I got into teaching and decided to go to college at 28 and become a freshman at 28 years old because I was working for the Postal Service lugging mail bags, and I hated it. And I was like, I was in a gray building with gray mail bags for 8, 10, 12 hours a day depending on the time of the year, and I hated it. And so I'm like, I wanted to use my brain for a while. But I tell kids, told a lot of my kids, I said, if I could do it all over again, get a skill. For me, I was in the acting field. I would go to cosmetology school. I would learn how to cut hair, and I'd learn. And I'll tell you why. Let me finish this thought.
Because I have a question.
I would be a barber for a couple of different reasons. Because I'm straight and I like girls, and so you have access to a lot of women with a cosmetology license. That's kind of why I got into acting in high school, But also, if you don't get a part, you can get a job at a theater. Let me be your wig manager. Let me help with makeup. Let me do hair. Plus I could work at a salon or a shop or whatever. I think that would be great. I used to tell my kids a lot. I said, be a flight attendant. You don't have to go, and it would make your brother and others in the lifelong educators crazy because I'd say you don't have to go to school. Watch Mike Rowe sometime, and Rowe works. Get a career. Be a carpenter. Be a welder. If you still want to be involved with the arts, learn to be a sound tech so you could go, listen to the symphony. So there's a billion things, but get out of Williamson County, get out of Murfreesboro. There's a big, huge world out there, and if you have a skill, it transcends any community, and that's I think that's why I get so obsessed with watching the stuff that these two kids that I told you about are the travel nurses, because they're doing that, and other kids like the girl I was telling you about who was a country kid. She rode horses and all, and now she's off in, I think they're in rural Georgia somewhere, and I don't remember exactly, but they're raising their kids that way. When you go, you doesn't mean you can't come back. That old phrase, well, you can never go home again. Yes, you can. It's different because it's evolving. Everything's always evolving, some for the good, some for the bad. You can come home, but just get out there and see it. That's missing. I think people get complacent and they want to stay in their own little environment and not expose themselves to other things. You don't have to like it. Just because you're exposed to it doesn't mean you have to like it.
I think two things here. One, I would take that advice. I would like, Tommy, figure something out. Honestly, one of the things I would have done is bought property back when it was affordable. I don't want to go down that road because we don't have much time left. But
I'll tell you the story about the property I passed on.
Anyway, about property, I would have done that. But I never had a singular thought on a skill, because for me, being the creative that I am, my thing growing up was I would draw. I was always drawing. But I got out of it when I went to college. I don't know if I educated myself out of it or I just found other interests. But I stopped doing the drawing thing. But even that, it was like I didn't really have a direction. There was no direction. So for me, it was like the Forrest Gump thing. I was a leaf on the wind. You know, I was whichever way the wind was blowing is kind of where I was gravitating to. Feather on the wind. Gentle on a breeze like. But I definitely agree with you. There's value though in taking jobs that sometimes seem beneath you, whether it's slinging
100%.
mail, whether it's working in a gas station. I can honestly say you will never gain any more valuable educational experience than when you work in a gas station, especially if it's off the interstate.
Yep. Work at a job you hate, you appreciate.
Because there's two things that are going to happen. One, you're unknowingly going to gain experience and skills, whether that's in sales, whether that's in a labor skill or, accounting, whatever that you're going to unknowingly gain some kind of skill. The other thing is it's going to motivate you, hopefully, to do what you really want to do, to realize this isn't because there's some people don't think about it this way. It's okay to figure out what you don't like in life. You don't have to hit the bullseye every time you go out. You don't have to hit a home run every time you walk out the door. And sometimes it's okay to realize this isn't what I want to do. I spent 5 years gaining a degree to be a teacher. I spent 1 year in a high school and realized this is not for me for a lot of reasons, but this is not for me. And good Stories and Comics.
Get that, Matt.
It's in the closet. People go, you guys got that Star Wars Unlimited? You guys got any Lord Conda left? Yeah, we do our podcast in a comic shop, so it's a little busy. We're getting close to opening. But here's my thing. I do think I have learned most of the stuff in my life from falling on my face, or realizing that this isn't for me. Even today, whether it's I went through a degree thing, I didn't really intend for this comic shop to be more than just a hobby business, but it's become more than a hobby business. And I fight it, and there's things I don't like. This isn't what, sometimes what you think you want isn't what you are meant to do or what you need to do. But I do think sometimes it's okay. This is what I'm trying to say, to figure out what it is you don't like. And that's a perspective. You got to realize, I don't really want to do this. It wasn't bad. I didn't hate it, but this isn't what I want to do, And sometimes you got to go sling mail. Sometimes you got to go mow yards, work in a farm. I mean, I wish I knew how to farm today at where I'm at right now. But when I was younger, I had hated nothing more than working on a farm. I didn't like the heat. I didn't like the allergies. I didn't like the bugs.
The bucking hay thing.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, the worst.
But I bought my first pair of Jordans slinging hay and cutting tobacco.
There you go.
And so there is value, because there's moments where I've had jobs where I've literally just sat there by myself going, why in the heck am I here? And then you really start to realize this is the direction I need to take my life. So there is value in being in those situations and doing those jobs. So any of those tens and tens of young people out there that are listening to us, go out there, just take a job. You're going to, A, put a little money in your pocket.
Absolutely.
B, you're going to get a little bit of experience, good or bad. And you're going to figure out what the next step is. Trust me, it'll happen.
100%. I agree 100%. Good advice. Good sound advice. That you can't be afraid. You can't be afraid to take chances. And that's where we were talking about. That's where the romance of you got the job. You're going to stick it out. You pick it out. How long you're going to stick it out, and then you quit. You give notice. You have something else lined up. It's okay to do that. It's not a bad thing. Give it a fair shot. It's not a bad thing. I sold commercial tires. I went from being in the classroom to humping, lugging heavy tires and I realized, I had my, maybe I was finding myself. Yeah. Maybe I was finishing my grieving process. Maybe I was realizing that I needed to do this to get back to what I was good at, and that was influencing the minds of America's youth. You know,
my favorite English professor in college was like I was in construction until the wall fell on me, and that was this moment when he realized that he needed to do something else.
Crazy.
Man, we're going to wrap this up.
Oh, man.
I know. I wish I had. We need 2 more hours. We could do this all day, but I got to open this college.
I love that we actually had a theme going into today.
We did.
And we got
sort of worked it in, and we got to it at the end.
Tell them what it was. Tell them what
we were talking about. 2 things actually. We were, I was thinking about the whole idea of romance, the romanticism, I should say.
Romanticism.
That's the more word, and sort of how some of that has been lost. Because we're so eager to hit a home run every time, or we're so deliberate, or we're trying to. Ego has sort of gotten in the way of that. And then the other thing we were talking about was there are so many people out here. We are so educated, we are so intelligent, we are so eager to point out how we know things, but there is a difference between having intelligence or education and having experience.
Right, and you can't buy experience.
You can only earn it. So
it's like respect.
Yeah,
it's not demanded; it's earned. So
respect you, man. I do, buddy. All right, man. I love you, Salties, man. Thanks for. We're gonna do this again next week.
We'll probably entitle this one "Bromance: A New Meaning."
I love it. Write that down. All right, Ryan. We'll do it again.
All right, brother. Thanks.